What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, you, my listeners. We've given Shams and Jeremy a break here. They very kindly covered for me for Tuesday's show when I needed to step out suddenly. So I really appreciate, obviously, all the hard work that they've put in all season long. I'll make sure I loop back to that towards the end here. But I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for listening. And this is the final regular Short Shifts show of the fantasy hockey season. We'll be in and around during the off season and through the playoffs, with some check-ins here and there and some other updates and episodes that we want to release. But this is the last show of season 5. 5 years we've been at this. So just want to thank you, of course, for your continued listening, patronage, whatever way that you support the show. And with that, let's get right into things. Want to hit a few headlines first. Some big news from a few different places across the NHL. First, congratulations to Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks and former Michigan man. Congrats, Michigan, getting to the Frozen Four, by the way. Look up that Frank Nazar between the legs pass if you haven't seen it yet. But anyway, back to Quinn Hughes. He broke his own assists record and now has surpassed his previous best as the Canucks' all-time defensive assists leader with 70 on the season. So nice work there. Another milestone hit. Wyatt Johnston scored his 30th goal. So credit where it's due, and a mea culpa on my part. I think when I look back on the season, dropping Wyatt Johnston when he spent 3, or I think it might have even just been 2 scoreless games on play 2 and line 3 right before Stankoven got called up, and I was down on him, and I said I was getting off the train. That's going to be one of the mistakes of the season, I think, for me, because Johnston has been really outstanding. He's been helping Jamie Benn stay very much fantasy relevant. And obviously those 3 have really found some chemistry. I think that Dallas is going to be a team that you may want to look at when you are drafting your playoff teams, because especially if it doesn't have redrafting each round like the helpful playoff draft does, and you're just trying to pick teams that you think are going to go far. I like Dallas for that position, and I know a lot of the patrons talking about some potential playoff setup have been having similar conversations. So congratulations on Wyatt Johnston hitting 30 goals. Another star who has definitely turned it around after I poo-pooed them a little bit, although this one is, maybe not as surprising, but Jake Ottinger has gotten his play back together. He was having that kind of rough run. I suggested that maybe we might be seeing a little bit more Scott Wedgwood, but maybe Wedgwood coming along, I think, threw that a little bit for a loop. So obviously, we didn't end up seeing a whole bunch of Scott Wedgwood, and Ottinger seems to really have gotten things back under control. Another milestone, Nikita Kucherov set the Tampa Bay record by reaching 129 points on the season. It's just been outstanding. I know he was being drafted sometimes as low as 9, 10, 11 in some leagues, but has definitely produced for his managers, and I don't think you're going to be able to be getting him that low, then even as he ages up a little bit there. He's also added a goal and an assist here on Thursday night already. I am up against him this week and another person that we will mention during the hot streaks. So it has been a tough one. I'm getting a Eland here, which is he wants me to make this a thing. So we'll see if we can make this happen. But getting Eland is when you are nicely in second place, but you are being brutally outpaced by the first place team. It's not that much for myself so much now. The rest of the pack has kind of caught up to where I am, and there's another guy who's within spitting distance but a few ahead. But yeah, my opponent is just would be crushing anyone in the division. So Ogie, your team looks outstanding this week, and I think you're going to win that consolation bracket playoff. So congrats there. one more guy I wanted to mention in our headline section and also make sure I'm giving a stick tap to Jeremy, who brought this guy up on Matchup Maximizer uh, over the weekend and suggested you might want to grab him, and that is Trevor Moore, who scored a hat trick. So that is some real quality depth scoring, and obviously, yeah, Jeremy brought him up as a guy with a nice schedule, getting good deployment, even without Phil Deneau around. He has been playing nicely. So, yeah, big score from Moore to help you out in your league if you followed Jeremy's advice and picked him up. Over to some injuries and outjuries throughout the league. We did get an update on Aaron Ekblad on Tuesday's show. We only knew that he was out. We didn't know sort of what the extent of the injury might be or what ultimately, we had to wait until we got an update. But we do know now that Ekblad is going to be out for the rest of the season with what has so far been an undisclosed injury. So if you are playing fantasy and you've got Ekblad on your squad, you can feel free to drop him if your IR is full. Otherwise, just stash him away, I suppose, so that you can think about the happy memories from throughout the season. Another guy we got an update on, Tomas Hertl. Seemed earlier in the day, we were seeing tweets that he was confirmed for Friday, but once they had a presser with Coach Bruce Cassidy, he said, nope, that would not be the case. So Hertl wait continues, but I know anybody who may be traded for him is hoping that he might be able to get in, even just for, a game this weekend, or if you have another week still to play, maybe you can get him for next week. But yeah, Hertl wait continues apace, still very much a wait and see. But hopefully, we'll be seeing him on the ice soon, and I think he will really, and I think probably when and if Stone returns as well, I think that'll make Vegas a pretty formidable team. It'll be interesting to see what things look like in terms of the playoffs. Just another follow up on a note from Tuesday. I know that Shams and Jeremy talked about Tristan Jarry being sick and out of the game. Alex Nedeljkovic played in his place. Jarry is healthy now, and I believe is backing up tonight, but not got the start. I believe he is in the process of defeating the Washington Capitals. It was 3-1 last time I checked that score. Alex Ovechkin scored, so he continues his hot run through the playoffs. So if you were trying to get those Capitals players for their advantageous playoff schedule, that probably worked out quite well for you. It's going to keep me in my current tier in the cupful, so I appreciate that from them, even if holding them throughout the season didn't do a whole lot for me in terms of making the real playoffs, but I'm glad I'll get another chance not getting relegated here, which seemed like a distinct possibility during kind of the dark times of the season when Ovi was ice and Connor was injured. But we'll get to that stuff. I'm going to do a draft retrospective episode that kind of will bookend along with my post-draft analysis. I'll try and keep it a little shorter this time, but I think there'll be some valuable items to learn from that section. And I did want to add, Nedeljkovic, like I said, is really putting together his best run as a Penguin. Prior to Thursday night, he had 4 quality starts and 4 wins in the previous 5 games and had started 6 straight. Thursday made 7 straight with another win and I believe another quality start, unless Washington scored some more. I suppose now that 7th start back was the only non-quality start, non-win. His worst outing. It was an understandable, really bad start against Colorado. That can certainly happen. It has happened to a lot of goalies throughout the season. But yeah, so this really puts Nedeljkovic in a good position. I would assume that Jarry, if healthy, is going to get one of the Tampa and Toronto games this weekend. But with those the only games left, if your league ends this week, probably you can find a better option than Jarry for one of these games, I imagine, against those opponents. So you may want to think about streaming him out. I've got him on injured reserve, and I'm not in a big rush to get him back in play. Another reason that my week is not going great is because my opponent has Ned. I have Jarry. And all those points going to him for his goalies has obviously been very effective for him. One last guy I'd like to follow up on that got some mention during Tuesday's episode was Cole Perfetti, who was playing on that line with Sean Monahan and Kyle Connor, and responded with a big game. Only 14 minutes, but a big jump from the 9 and 10 minutes he had been seeing previously. And he does have an assist, played on that line. He's got about 8 minutes of ice time over the course of the first two periods, so not trending for a ton of ice, but he does have 3 shots already. And like I said, added in that assist. So Toffoli still down there in the bottom six. And like we thought might happen, Perfetti getting some run in that top six, and maybe going to hold on to that spot. We'll see kind of how it goes, but he's a 10% rostered guy. You might want to take a look at him as a possibility if you're looking for more players, although he only has a Saturday game remaining against Minnesota. And then just to wrap up with a couple of late breaking injuries from Thursday night's game. Not too terribly important players, but some that folks may have been relying on. I was very excited to talk about success that Guhle has had recently over the 6 games prior to Thursday, when he was only able to play a minute and 14 seconds before leaving with that upper body injury. He had accumulated 2 goals and 5 assists. He had been playing 21 and a half minutes or more per game for the most part throughout that streak. Obviously providing some nice peripherals as well. He had been shooting more, getting the hits and blocks still. So a tough one to see him go down. If I was in a closer match, I might be rending my garments a bit more for having used my last pick just earlier today. But I don't think it'll have a major impact on the outcome of my match. But a tough one, because that's a guy who can really fill some categories for those folks in those types of leagues. He had been scoring lately to supplement those peripherals as well. So tough to see Caden Guhle go down, but that's a guy definitely that I'll be looking at as a defenseman in those later rounds, especially if I'm fading D. That's a guy who, really can do some nice things. And I think he will probably be draftable next season. But if not, grabbing him off the waiver wire, no problem either. Like to see it, certainly. Another injury came to Daniil Tarasov, who also left quite early in the game with an upper body injury. No word exactly on the extent of that yet, but especially to Andrew on Twitter, who I suggested he grab Tarasov as opposed to Blackwood to get a couple games with his final move. That is looking like a tough one. So I am sending positive vibes. I hope your skaters will help you maintain the lead that you have in the other cats that you were ahead, and maybe you can steal another one along the way. But very sorry to see Tarasov go out the way that he did. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick little break here. And on the other side, we will talk about some players who are on hot streaks who may be available to help you as you bring your season to a close. If you are ending this week, of course, Matchup Maximizer will be there to help you out if your playoffs extend into the next week. And hopefully, your great players who have brought you to that point in the season won't be getting benched as you head into those late stages. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to Short Shifts. Welcome back to Short Shifts. So I've got 4 guys who are on nice hot streaks here that I just want to mention before we head on out for the evening. I want to start with Sidney Crosby. No actionable advice here, naturally, but he may be winning championships for his managers this week and throughout this season. He's got 84 points in 75 games, ranked 14th overall in Cupful scoring, and is 19th in fantasy points per game, according to Cupful scoring. He's been able to do this even as Evgeny Malkin has plummeted to 100th overall in Cupful points. Gensel has been dealt to Carolina. And in fact, after 1 point in 4 games, while he kind of, was adjusting, not that Gensel had been there for him either, but I assume it, dealt him an emotional blow of some kind. How else do you explain just the 1 point in the 4 games? But since that little stretch, he has run up 20 points over the course of the last 12 games. He's been absolutely on fire, willing Penguins to some of these wins. Yes, two of his goals are empty netters. But listen, I would be feeding Crosby to hit the empty net for all the good work that he's been putting in for the team. Again, like I said, nothing actionable this season, but even as Malkin is tailing off, I think that we are looking at a Sidney Crosby who still has some quality seasons ahead of him. I think if you're in a keeper league or if you're thinking about drafting him next season, just keep an eye out for that. He definitely overperformed, I think, what people thought he could do for the most part in this upcoming season. So, yeah, this is a guy who has still got it. Don't shy away from him. Should he fall to you, in the third, fourth round areas? Although I think he's less likely to do that next season than he did this year. But again, he is not going to be available to anybody. Let's talk about some guys who you might be able to pick up. I want to start with Pavel Zacha, 42% owned in Yahoo. He has had 8 points in 5 games since the playoffs started, has just been an absolute steady stud. A lot of those have been assists, so maybe not as many total points as you might like to see. But, this continues a run of serious, steady work that he's had. In the last month, he has scored 19 points in 15 games. I am, maybe making that cutoff a little bit arbitrary because on March 2nd, he only played 4 minutes during that game. I don't recall exactly what it was that happened because he wasn't injured for the next game, but maybe he got a stinger and he was out. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, 19 points in 15 games since March 4th after that shortened March 2nd outing. He's been really excellent, really steady. And yeah, that's been a guy, pretty widely available on a hot streak. Maybe you won't be able to keep it up long term, but we're not talking about long term right now because there's not much of a season left. So that's a guy I might be looking at. Coming in just a little less highly owned than Zacha. With 2 goals, 2 assists, and then 2 goals in his previous 3 games, respectively. It is Andrei Kuzmenko, who has been playing with Pospisil and Kadri at even strength and playing on power play 1 with a nice boost to his ice time, playing between 17:45 and 19 minutes a game during that stretch. Whereas during that month previous, when he had been a little more cold, and a reason why he was hitting some of those waiver wires, he'd been tapping out around 16 minutes, including some dips into the low teens. He had an assist already on Thursday. I don't know if he's added to that total since we started recording, but that gives him at least 7 points in the last 4 games. So Andrei Kuzmenko, 38% owned on Yahoo, another hot hand who might be worth taking a stab at. And honestly, although he is the lowest owned among our group here, no one has been wielding a hotter stick than Brandon Saad, just 3% owned on Yahoo. I shouldn't say no one, but no one in the 3% owned range, I think, has been wielding a hotter stick. 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points over the course of the last 7 games. Yes, that's 6 goals on 14 shots, but a red hot player who's about to have a back-to-back against Anaheim and San Jose. That's somebody that I would like to have on my roster. So if you've got a move left, if you've got room for a Brandon Saad, that might be someone I would look at. We're not worried about the long-term sustainability of that shooting percentage. Like I said, everything is short-term right now. So Brandon Saad, very widely available, could be a guy who could really help you out down the stretch. Don't really want to focus on those cold players because we are, in the final moves here. You know who you are adding and who you're dropping to bring these guys in. So we won't worry so much about them. And with that, we are hitting the outro of the show. I do want to make a little bit of a diversion here. This has been a really fun season. It's been great getting to work with Shams, with Jeremy, with Derek, with all the people who have stopped in here and there. Nate from Apples and Genos, Trev, who's been running the accountability account or thread, I should say, on Discord, keeping track of where we have been correct and the things that we have gotten wrong. Basically everything I've said about the Dallas Stars so far this season, except that Wyatt Johnston was awesome while he was playing awesome. But anyway, all of those folks, and of course, Brian and Elon, just want to express my appreciation. It's so fun to get to do this show each season, to, think through my ideas and share them with you as the fantasy season goes on. I hope it has been helpful for you. I hope you've benefited from the good advice. Maybe you've been smart enough to avoid some of the not so great advice. When you're on the air 2 times a week, there'll be some mistakes in there, but hopefully overall it has been fun and it has been productive. A thanks to Ben and Jade as I wrap up this 5th season, because without their invitation to write with them in the Cookupful community way back 6 or 7 years ago, I wouldn't be behind the mic working with these wonderful folks here today. And again, my two main co-hosts, Shams and Jeremy, for all of the outstanding work they've put on through the season, helping me out when I needed coverage, coordinating, when we would be on the show, and just doing a great job with prep and with recording and everything. Just an outstanding first season behind the mic on the regular for those two excellent gentlemen. And thank you, our listeners, of course, especially if you have hung in with us all the way through to this last stage of the season. Looking forward to getting a little bit of a break here. Enjoy playing in the playoff pools once they get started. And like we said, we'll be in and out with some new content for you here and there throughout the remainder of the season and the playoffs and over the summer. And we'll be gearing up big time for a very exciting new season, obviously, by the fall. And with any luck, our guy Jeremy will be competing up there in Tier 1 and fighting his way towards a Cookupful Ultimate Championship. So good luck in the finals, buddy. I hope everything goes great. As always, please give us a follow at Short Shifts KK. Brian and Elon, of course, can be found at Keeping Carlson. Use GameDayTweets.com to get all the best information from Twitter, including team-by-team tweets and searchable tweets by player name. Visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.